I want you to stop for a second and think about something most people never think about. Every single day you sit down to eat, you make choices, sometimes quickly, sometimes without even thinking, about what goes into your body. And here's what almost nobody tells you: some of the foods you're eating right now, foods that are sitting in your pantry, foods that are marketed to you as healthy or normal or even good for you, those foods might be quietly feeding something you never want to feed. I'm talking about cancer cells. And before you click away thinking this is going to be another scary, overwhelming video full of things you can't understand or act on, I want you to know that is not what this is. This video is about empowering you. This is about giving you real, clear, actionable knowledge so that you can make better choices starting today. Because knowledge is the most powerful tool you have when it comes to your health, and you deserve to have it. I've spent years looking at the science behind how food interacts with the human body at a cellular level. And one of the most important things I've come to understand is this: cancer is not just a matter of bad luck. Yes, genetics play a role. Yes, there are environmental factors. But what you eat consistently over time that creates either an environment where disease struggles to survive or one where it quietly, slowly thrives. And most people are unknowingly creating the second kind of environment, not because they're careless, but because they've never been told the truth about what certain foods actually do inside the body. That changes today. Before I go any further, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear from you. What does your typical daily diet look like right now? Are you someone who tries to eat clean most of the time, or do you feel like your diet could use some real improvement? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read through as many comments as I can, and your answers actually help me understand what topics to cover next. So tell me, where are you starting from today? And if you've already made changes to your diet because of a health concern, I'd love to hear that story too. Now let's get into it. And I want to start with something that might genuinely surprise you because it surprised me when I first really understood the full picture. Sugar. I know you've heard this before, but I want you to hear it differently today because most explanations about sugar and cancer are either oversimplified or buried in so much technical language that they don't actually stick. So let me explain it the way it matters. Every cell in your body uses glucose, a form of sugar, as fuel. That includes cancer cells. But here's the critical difference: cancer cells consume glucose at a dramatically accelerated rate compared to normal cells. This is actually so reliable that it's used in medical imaging. A PET scan works partly by detecting which cells in your body are consuming the most glucose because tumors light up. They're essentially sugar hungry in a way that normal healthy cells are not. Now, this doesn't mean that eating sugar directly causes cancer to appear from nothing. It's more nuanced than that. But what the research increasingly shows is that chronically elevated blood sugar and the insulin spikes that come with it create an internal environment that actively promotes cancer cell growth and suppresses your immune system's ability to detect and destroy abnormal cells. And what raises blood sugar most aggressively? Refined sugar, added sugar, the kind that's hiding in almost every processed food you've ever bought. I'm not talking about the sugar in a whole apple or a bowl of berries. I'm talking about the white sugar, the high fructose corn syrup, the glucose fructose syrup, the dextrose. All these different names on ingredient labels that are essentially telling you the same thing. This product will spike your blood sugar, trigger a flood of insulin, and if that happens repeatedly over months and years, you are creating a metabolic environment that cancer cells love. Sodas, sweetened juices, flavored yogurts, breakfast cereals, even the ones with pictures of athletes on the box, granola bars, energy drinks, sweetened coffees, ketchup, salad dressings, bread, pasta sauces. These products are absolutely loaded with added sugar, and most people consuming them have no idea how much they're taking in daily because it's spread across so many different foods throughout the day. The World Health Organization recommends no more than about 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day for an adult. The average person in many parts of the world is consuming 3 to 4 times that amount. And that chronic excess is not just contributing to obesity and diabetes, it's feeding an internal environment that makes the body more vulnerable to cancer development and progression. The action I want you to take isn't to become afraid of all sweetness forever. It's to start reading labels. Start looking for added sugar in the ingredients list of everything you buy for 1 week. Just observe. What you find will probably shock you. And from there, you can start making swaps, choosing whole fruit instead of juice, choosing plain versions of foods, and adding your own natural sweeteners sparingly, cutting back on the obvious sources like sodas and candy first. Small changes done consistently genuinely matter at a cellular level. Now, let's talk about something that's going to be harder to hear for a lot of people because it's not just about what you add to your diet, it's about something that's become deeply embedded in modern food culture: processed meats. I'm talking about bacon, hot dogs, sausages, deli meats, smoked meats, canned meats, the things that are convenient, tasty, and absolutely everywhere. In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified processed meats as Group 1 carcinogens. That means there is sufficient evidence to conclude that processed meat causes cancer in humans, specifically colorectal cancer, with associations also seen in stomach cancer. Group 1, the same classification as tobacco smoke and asbestos, not because processed meat is as dangerous as smoking a pack a day, but because the evidence linking it to cancer is that strong and consistent. Why? What is it about processed meat specifically? There are a few mechanisms. First, the nitrates and nitrites used to preserve and color these meats. They react with proteins in the meat and in your digestive system to form compounds called nitrosamines, and nitrosamines are potently carcinogenic. They damage DNA. Second, the smoking and high heat cooking processes involved in making many of these products generate polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines, two more categories of compounds that have been directly linked to DNA damage and cancer development. Third, heme iron, which is found in high concentrations in red and processed meats, has been shown in research to promote the formation of carcinogenic compounds in the gut and to damage the lining of the colon. The gut lining is your first line of defense against abnormal cell changes in the digestive system. When it's repeatedly damaged, the risk of something going wrong, of cells mutating and not being corrected, increases significantly. I want to be clear here because I know this can feel overwhelming. I'm not telling you that eating a slice of ham once at a holiday dinner will give you cancer. That's not how this works. What I'm saying is that making processed meats a regular, daily, or near daily part of your diet is genuinely increasing your risk in a way that is scientifically well established. And the good news is that this is completely within your power to change. Replacing processed meats with whole protein sources, grilled chicken, fish, legumes, eggs, tofu, even making that shift 4 or 5 days out of 7 makes a real difference over time. Your gut will thank you. Your cells will thank you. Let me move to something that connects deeply to what I just said, and it's about the type of fat in your diet. Not all fat is the same. This is something I feel is still misunderstood by so many people even now, despite decades of research. There is a type of fat that is genuinely inflammatory at the cellular level, and chronic inflammation is one of the most well established drivers of cancer development. We know that inflammation creates an environment where damaged cells are more likely to survive and multiply rather than being cleared by the immune system. We know that inflammatory signaling pathways overlap with the pathways that cancer cells use to grow and spread. And the type of fat most strongly linked to promoting this kind of chronic cellular inflammation is an excess of omega 6 fatty acids from refined vegetable and seed oils, combined with a severe deficiency of omega 3 fatty acids. Think about what most processed food is cooked in: soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil. These oils are extremely high in omega 6 fatty acids, and when you heat these oils to high temperatures, which is exactly what happens during frying and in most industrial food processing, they oxidize. They break down into compounds called aldehydes and lipid peroxides that are directly toxic to cells and DNA. When you eat fried food regularly, fast food fries, fried chicken, chips, anything deep fried in refined oil, You are consuming these oxidized compounds in significant quantities. And at the same time, most people in modern society are severely deficient in omega 3 fatty acids, which are anti inflammatory, which support healthy cell membranes, which help regulate the immune response. The imbalance between these two types of fat in the modern diet is one of the most underappreciated factors in the epidemic of chronic disease, including cancer. The shift here is not complicated. It starts with reducing fried foods and products made with refined seed oils. Reading ingredient labels again, if it says partially hydrogenated anything, put it back on the shelf. Cooking at home with better fats like olive oil for lower heat, or cooking with avocado oil for higher temperatures. And actively adding omega 3 rich foods into your diet. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel 2 to 3 times a week, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds. These aren't expensive or exotic choices. They're accessible, and the impact they have on reducing inflammatory markers in the body is measurable and real. Now, I want to talk about alcohol, and I want to do it without judgment because I know this is a sensitive topic for many people. The relationship between alcohol and cancer is something that, honestly, the public is far less aware of than they should be. And I think part of the reason is that the messaging around it has been muddled for decades. Alcohol is classified as a group 1 carcinogen. It is causally linked to at least 7 types of cancer: mouth, throat, esophagus, larynx, liver, breast, and colorectal cancer. And this is not about heavy drinking only. The research shows that risk begins to increase with any regular consumption, and it increases in a dose dependent way, meaning the more you drink, the higher the risk. Even one drink per day has been associated with a measurable increase in breast cancer risk in women. How does alcohol cause cancer? Several ways. When your body metabolizes ethanol and the alcohol, it produces a compound called acetaldehyde, which is directly carcinogenic. It damages DNA and interferes with DNA repair. Alcohol also increases levels of estrogen and other hormones, which can fuel hormone sensitive cancers. It impairs folate metabolism, which is critical for DNA synthesis and repair. It acts as a solvent, making the tissues of the mouth, throat, and esophagus more permeable to other carcinogens. And it promotes inflammation and oxidative stress throughout the body. I'm not here to tell you that you must never drink again. What I am here to tell you is that if you are drinking regularly and you care about your cancer risk, reducing your intake is one of the most impactful steps you can take. There is no truly safe level, and moderate drinking is not protective in the way it was once thought to be. If this is something you're considering changing, please talk to your doctor, especially if you feel dependent on alcohol, because stopping suddenly without medical supervision can be dangerous. I want to move now to something that doesn't get enough attention in conversations about cancer and diet, and that's ultra processed food as a category. Not just processed, ultra processed. We're talking about food products that contain a long list of additives, preservatives, artificial colors, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, and other ingredients that are not really food in any traditional sense. They are chemical modifications designed to make something shelf stable, visually appealing, and hyper palatable. Instant noodles, packaged snack cakes, flavored crackers, frozen ready meals loaded with additives, fast food. These products make up a terrifyingly large percentage of the daily caloric intake in many countries, and growing evidence is linking ultra processed food consumption to increased cancer risk, independent of sugar, fat, and calorie content. The additives themselves may be part of the problem. Certain emulsifiers, for example, have been shown in research to disrupt the gut microbiome and promote intestinal inflammation. And there is increasing interest in whether some artificial colorings and preservatives have genotoxic effects, meaning they can damage DNA directly. Beyond the specific additives, ultra processed foods displace the foods that actively protect against cancer. Every meal of ultra processed food is a meal that didn't include fiber rich vegetables, antioxidant dense fruits, anti inflammatory herbs and spices, or the phytonutrients found in whole plant foods that research consistently shows have cancer protective properties. Sulforaphane in cruciferous vegetables, lycopene in tomatoes, curcumin in turmeric, resveratrol in grapes, quercetin in onions and apples, allicin in garlic. These compounds interact with gene expression, support detoxification pathways, have direct anti tumor properties in laboratory and increasingly in clinical research. When your diet is full of ultra processed food, you are not getting these compounds, and their absence matters as much as the presence of harmful ones. The practical message here is to shift the ratio. You don't need a perfect diet tomorrow. What you need is to gradually increase the proportion of your diet that comes from real, whole, minimally processed food. More vegetables, especially the dark leafy greens, the cruciferous ones like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, more colorful fruits, more legumes, more nuts and seeds, more herbs and spices used generously in cooking, not just for flavor, but for their extraordinary chemical complexity, and less of the packaged, industrially produced stuff, even when it's convenient, even when it's marketed as healthy, because marketing is not the same as science. Let me also touch on something that surprises people when they first encounter this connection: refined carbohydrates and their relationship to cancer risk, particularly through the mechanism of insulin like growth factor, or IGF-1. When you eat foods that rapidly raise blood sugar, white bread, white rice, regular pasta, pastries, crackers, most breakfast cereals, your body produces insulin to manage that blood sugar. Over time, with repeated spikes, the body can also increase its production of a hormone called IGF-1, which is a powerful growth factor. It tells cells to grow and divide. In a healthy, balanced context, that's fine. But elevated IGF-1 levels sustained over time have been associated in multiple large studies with increased risk of several cancers, including breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers, because IGF-1 doesn't just signal healthy cells to grow, it can also signal abnormal and precancerous cells to grow. And it can suppress the process called apoptosis, which is the programmed cell death that is supposed to eliminate damaged or abnormal cells before they can become a problem. Choosing whole grain versions of carbohydrate rich foods, brown rice, whole grain bread, oats, quinoa, and pairing carbohydrates with fiber, protein, and healthy fat to slow the absorption of glucose makes a genuine difference to your metabolic environment over time. It's not about never eating a piece of white bread again. It's about making the whole grain, fiber rich option the default, the norm, the thing you reach for automatically. I also want to briefly talk about something that is technically a food, or at least added to food, and that is artificial trans fats, now largely banned in many countries, but still present in some products in certain regions, particularly in partially hydrogenated oils. Trans fats are among the most harmful substances ever introduced into the human food supply. They promote systemic inflammation, disrupt cell membrane function, impair immune response, and have been linked not only to cardiovascular disease, but to cancer risk as well. If you are in a region where you still see partially hydrogenated oil on ingredient labels, avoiding those products entirely is something I would strongly encourage. Now, I want to bring this back to something that I think is really important before I close. Okay? I have spent this video talking about what to reduce, what to limit, what to be cautious about, and that is necessary information. But I never want you to walk away from a conversation about health feeling only fear and restriction, because the truth of what the science tells us is actually profoundly hopeful. The same research that shows us what feeds cancer also shows us what starves it, what creates an internal environment where abnormal cells are detected and destroyed, where inflammation is controlled, where your DNA repair mechanisms work well, where your immune system is vigilant and capable. And that environment is created by whole, real food, by vegetables and fruits in abundance and variety, by fiber that feeds a healthy gut microbiome, by omega 3 fats that quiet inflammation, by phytonutrients that support hundreds of protective biological pathways, by staying hydrated with water, by limiting alcohol and processed meats and added sugar, not perfectly, but consistently. Your body is not a passive victim of what you eat. It is a dynamic, responsive system that adapts to the inputs you give it. Every meal is a message you're sending to your cells. And while no single food will save you and no single food will destroy you, the pattern of your diet, day after day, week after week, year after year, creates the terrain in which either health or disease is more likely to take root. You have more control over that terrain than you may have realized before watching this video, and that control is one of the most powerful things you possess. I want to leave you with this. You don't have to change everything at once. Sustainable change happens step by step. Pick one thing from what you learned today, just one, and focus on that this week. Maybe it's reading labels to find hidden sugar. Maybe it's swapping processed meat for a whole protein source a few days a week. Maybe it's adding one more serving of cruciferous vegetables to your day. Maybe it's replacing one soda with water. Small, consistent changes compound over time into a fundamentally different internal environment. And that environment is one where your body has the best possible chance to do what it is designed to do, to heal, to protect itself, and to keep you well for as long as possible. If this video gave you something valuable today, please share it with someone you care about, because this information should not be kept to a few. It should be something every person has access to. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, because I am here every week with content like this, designed to help you make sense of the science so that you can make genuinely better choices for your health. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about your health enough to watch this far. I'll see you in the next one.